The humans are taking the offensive. Stan Mayakovsky is a once famous scientist fallen on hard times. Now he dodges spaceship repo men and dreams of the marketability of his cybernetic aunt. Then a woman named Julie Lish walks into his life. She is beautiful, mysterious, and totally amoral. She is also skilled in the arts of thievery and Oriental self-defense. What's more, she has a plan so outrageous there might be one chance in a million to pull it off. Together, Stan and Julie become the most unlikely pair of pirates in the universe. With a hijacked spaceship and a crew of hard-case misfits, they're searching for the ultimate pot of gold at the end of a bloody intergalactic rainbow. Royal jelly from an alien hive. The only problem is that the fortune lies on the universe's most God-forsaken planet. And once they get their hands on it, they'll have to fight their way past the aliens to get off the planet alive. Aliens, Book 2, Alien Harvest. Written by Robert Sheckley. May he rest in peace. To my wife Gail, with all my love. Captain Hoban's prologue. I was in the middle of the whole thing with Stan and Julie. I guess almost everybody on Earth knows how it ended, but they didn't know how it began. I've been putting together everything I know about it. I figured starting the morning Stan got the summons. 1. That morning, Stan had to go downtown to the Colonel Mercantile building on Versailles Street. The day before, there had been a ring at his doorbell. Stan hadn't been doing much when it came. He had several experiments going on in his cellar laboratory. The lab took up most of the space in the old frame house on Gramercy Park that he had inherited from his father. Stan hadn't been feeling well lately, and although he tried to tell himself it wasn't anything, some little voice within him kept on intruding, telling him, this could be very serious. He had been avoiding his doctor for a while, but now he called up and made an appointment with Dr. Johnson at the 59th Street Clinic for the next day. That was when the doorbell rang. The man standing outside was tall and thin and dressed in a badly pressed gray business suit. Are you Professor Mayakovsky? I am, Stan replied. Are you the Stanley Myakovsky who wrote the book about Ori the ant? Yes, I am, Stan repeated. He was starting to feel a little better. This guy seemed to be someone who had read his book, was probably a fan, maybe even wanted an autograph. What can I do for you? I got a summons for you, the man said, taking a folded paper out of his pocket and slapping it briskly into Stan's hand. You are served. Have a nice day, doctor. He turned and left. Stan went back inside and looked over the summons. He had no idea what it was about, and the document itself didn't enlighten him. It simply said he was to appear in courtroom B at 311 Versailles Street the following day, or face the consequences. Have a nice day. What a laugh. It had been so long since Stan had had a nice day. He couldn't even remember what one looked like. The next day he left early for Versailles Street. The Broadway trolley was running again, rumbling past the newly restored buildings of Midtown. It was a bright day outside, and despite his depression, Stan started to feel just the slightest lift to his spirits. That lasted until he got to Versailles Street. Versailles Street was filled with city and federal buildings, some of them quite old, dating from before the time of the aliens, miraculously unburned during the anarchic days when the aliens ruled. Some of the buildings in the area were brand spanking new. There had been a lot of rebuilding since those days. Stan would have liked to have been part of the first days after humans reoccupied their own planet. It must have been exhilarating, reoccupying your own country, having a future again on your own planet. Now, of course, it was business as usual, more or less. Times were pretty good. America was experiencing a boom. Business was strong. A lot of people were making a lot of money. Some people, of course, were losing a lot of money. It had to come from somewhere, so it came from people like Stan. He mounted the stone steps of the criminal courts building. Within, he found a clerk who checked his summons and directed him up a flight of stairs to the correct courtroom. He walked in. It was a small room with a half-dozen chairs facing a raised desk. The sign on the door had said Judge Jacob Lesnar presiding. Behind the desk sat a small man in black robes. He said, "Dr. Stanley Mayakovsky?" "Yes," Stan replied. "Come in. I suppose you know what this is about." "No, I don't." Judge Lesnar frowned. "Your lawyer really should keep you better informed." Stan nodded, although he knew very well he hadn't been answering his lawyer's calls over the last few days. "Well, this is a pretty simple matter." The judge searched among the papers on his desk until he found what he was looking for. "This is a government order seizing your spaceship." "The Dolomite?" Stan asked. The judge searched his papers until he found it. "Yes, of course, that's the name of your ship. You may no longer go aboard." "But why?" "You were sent a notice a month ago advising you of the government's decision to take action against your unpaid bills." Stan thought the paper must be somewhere among the unopened mail on his desk. He had been too depressed of late to open any of it. Most of the letters had something bad to say. How this investment or that was sliding to hell on him, or how his patients weren't earning as expected. And even more papers about all his back taxes. He felt a wave of hopelessness engulf him. He tried to struggle out of it. "They're not allowed to do that. My spaceship is one of the few ways I have of conducting business. If they take that, how am I supposed to pay them what they say I owe?" "That is not my concern," the judge stated flatly. "You should have taken that into consideration when you fell so deeply into arrears. In any event, I am verbally notifying you of the government's decision to take your ship. If you have any difficulty with this, you or your lawyers can file a complaint with the clerk down the hall." "Thanks a lot," said Stan bitterly, and left the courtroom. A few blocks away, he found a park bench to sit on. He needed to collect himself. His heart was beating wildly, and he was sweating, though it was a mild day. At least he thought maybe my bad news for the day's over. I've had my share. That was before his doctor's appointment, of course. Dr. Johnson of the 59th Street Clinic came to the dressing room just as Stan finished knotting his tie. "How did my tests work out?" Stan asked. The doctor looked uncomfortable. Not so good, I'm afraid. But I was here a year ago, and you said I was fine. A lot can happen in a year, the doctor said. Stan wanted to say, "Sure, tell me about it," but he held back. "Exactly what is the matter?" he said. Dr. Johnson answered. I might as well give it to you straight, Dr. Mayakovsky. You were correct in your surmise about those black marks on your chest and back. They are indeed cancers. Stan sat down. He needed a moment to think about this. He couldn't believe what he had heard, and yet he had suspected it for months. Finally, he asked, "Is my condition terminal?" "Yes," the doctor nodded gravely. "In fact, you don't have much time left. A matter of months. I'm sorry, but it's best to give you the news straight. The condition, as I'm sure you know, is incurable. But its progress can be slowed and we can ease some of the symptoms. I've already made out a prescription for the medicine we prescribe for such cases." He handed Stan a folded slip of paper. The doctor handed out a small plastic box. Within it, packed in foam rubber, were a dozen ampules of bluish liquid. "This is Xenozip. Have you ever heard of it?" Stan nodded. "If memory serves, it is produced from the royal jelly of alien females." "That is correct," Dr. Johnson said. "I must tell you it's no cure for what you have, but it should relieve the symptoms. The stuff's illegal and I shouldn't be giving you this, but it could be just what you're looking for." "Does it have much in the way of side effects?" Stan asked. The doctor smiled grimly. "It has indeed. That's why it hasn't received government approval yet, though many people still use it. Indeed, it has become the most sought-after consciousness-altering substance in existence. Although the effect is not invariable, it does give most people an intense feeling of well-being and competence. Others experience levels of their own being not normally perceived. Still, others have an orgasm that seems to go on forever." "At least I'm gonna die happy." Stan wasn't smiling as he spoke.